Hello everyone and welcome to session 3 of the BPM Open House, brought to you by PNMsoft. This session is a case study looking at automating one of the world's most complex commercial service delivery processes, followed by a demo sequence tuned for orchestrating operations. Your speakers today are Paula Sweet, Senior Integration Product Specialist at Atkins. Paula is responsible for the design and implementation of iGate, which is the company's commercial service delivery process. She has worked at the company for over 20 years and has been working on the iGate system for the last 5 years. Also speaking with Paula is James Luxford, CTO for PNMsoft. James is a BPM expert involved in IT development and project management for over 20 years. James is leading PNMsoft's product management group and works closely with business partners and customers to capture and set a product roadmap. When you're ready, Paula, please begin.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. As Andrea said, my name is Paula Sweet from Atkins, and my presentation today will cover the automation of the Atkins service delivery process. I'll start by giving a short overview of the Atkins business, just so that you understand a little bit about what the company is about, and then go on to cover the service delivery process and the benefits we've achieved by automating the process. And finally, I'll cover some of the lessons we've learned on our journey through the automation to make the service delivery process an online BPM solution. So who are Atkins? Atkins is one of the world's most respected design, engineering and project management consultancies. We build long-term trusted partnerships to create a world where lives are enriched through the implementation of our ideas. We work closely with a wide range of clients from different sectors and regions across public sector, private sector and local and national governments across various parts of the globe. We plan every aspect of our clients' projects, from the cost and risk planning through feasibility studies and logistics to impact assessments and stakeholder engagement activity. We design intellectual capital such as management systems and business processes, but we also design physical structures such as office towers, schools, bridges, highways. Our clients entrust us with the management of projects, people and issues, ensuring that deadlines are met, costs are controlled and success is delivered. I have a few examples of some of the projects that Atkins have worked on. We're proud to have been the engineering design expert behind London 2012. Our selection as the official engineering design services provider to the London 2012 Olympic and Paralympic Games showcased our people's technical excellence, our ability to deliver world-class infrastructure projects and our sector leadership position. We were the lead designer for the Japan-Turkey Metro joint venture contractor on the red and green lines of the Dubai Metro. Our scope of work included design and project management of the civil works and its coordination. And we were responsible for the foundation design of Galloper Wind Farm, which is an extension of the UK Round 2 Greater Gabbard offshore wind farms, and will comprise of 68 turbines located approximately 27 kilometres off the Suffolk coast. That's really just to give you an idea of a cross-section and breadth of the projects that Atkins are involved in. So what's our service delivery process? It's fundamental to our success that the work we tender for, win and deliver is of the best quality to provide our clients with the value for money service they expect. We introduced the service delivery process initially offline to ensure these objectives are achieved. It's about realizing value from the services we deliver. It's the core of our business, as it's only through successful delivery of our service that we are able to create value. The process started as an offline set of Word and Excel documents before we implemented the online BPM solution to address this requirement. So you'll see from this slide we have a variety of line of business applications working together to fully optimize the service delivery process and transform our user experience. We use Microsoft Dynamics CRM for our pipeline management. This provides us with consistency and visibility of leads and opportunities across business units, teams, markets and offices that can be located pretty much anywhere in the world now. It also supports the account management process and improves client and market intelligence. JD Edwards is our finance tool, which includes all our accounts payable, accounts receivable and time recording functions. And we also have a monthly update of forecasts for our projects, which we refer to as PSRs. SharePoint we use as collaboration for our project and opportunity documentations. We also make use of its MySite facility as a point of contact for others in our organisation to find information about individual skills and experience. And we also use MySites as a portal to access any actions you may have assigned to you from the service delivery process or some of our other BPM processes. Oracle eBusiness is our HR system and covers payslips as well. And Sequence is our BPM tool, which we use for service delivery process, where we categorize our opportunities and manage the stage gates and approvals that need to be completed. So as you see from this next slide, we have a variety of different partners which we work with successfully to deliver the solution, including PNMsoft, Oracle and Microsoft. Our automated service delivery process was established to evaluate, manage and record opportunities and projects. It includes quite a complex risk tool to categorize the opportunities into green, amber and red zones depending on the calculated risk of the bid, which can include things like the location of the job, the location of the resources you're going to use on the job and any liabilities that may be part of the bid. It also includes a built-in algorithm to determine the required approval levels based on factors including revenue, the risk zone that we've just calculated, and liability. This then determines the stage gates that are required based on the risk zone calculated, with each zone having a different set of optional and mandatory stage gates to pass through from creation to closeout of an opportunity. We also require different levels of reviewer, which are assigned based on the risk zone and provide independent challenges to the bid and to the project delivery. We selected the BPM tool initially to deliver the automated service delivery process, but following on from the success of this implementation, we've also used the tool to successfully implement a number of other corporate solutions such as timesheets, expenses, annual leave, invoicing and the monthly project updates, the PSRs. All of these require one or more levels of approval, and we found that they fitted easily into a BPM solution. We selected the tool based on its ease of use, its agility, quick deployments and the relationship with the supplier. We use various technologies within our solutions. I've listed a cross-section of them here: web services and WCF services, message queuing, and we also use Oracle's business process execution language, BPEL. All of these we use to handle the multiple integrations we have between our other line of business applications. We have two-way synchronization between the service delivery process and Microsoft CRM, so that opportunity updates can be carried out in either system, but both are kept synchronized. We also push and pull data from the finance system from within the StageGate service delivery process, so that when a job is won, we'll automatically create a job in our finance system that can record any costs, and we also have a backward feed that updates any costs into the service delivery process, so we can have an up-to-date view of what's going on the finance system. We'll create any SharePoint sites that we need for collaboration as part of the process, and also create projects into our project controls system. So it's a very integrated solution. Here is quite a complex screenshot of what our primary workflow of a service delivery solution looks like. There's also a few sub-workflows that are spawned from this primary process. You can see there's there's quite a few pathways through the workflow, and which one is taken will depend on the approvals that we've calculated that are needed, and also the risk zone. The higher the approval and the higher the risk zone, the more you're going to have to do within the process. So you can see here, if we've categorized something as green, we've got a fairly straightforward set of forms that need to be filled in. Whereas if it's decided that it's amber or red, it's a much more complicated process that the users will be led through. Obviously the users never see that this is what the workflow looks like in the background. They're given quite simple screens from which to access this. Excuse me. So just here a screenshot of a few of the screens that we have. So the entry point to the service delivery process is through a .NET portal that we call iGate. This portal will present the user with all the opportunities that they're working on and allow them to navigate to the different line of business applications they would need to use to manage the opportunity through its life cycle. So we have links to Pipeline CRM, to the stage gates, which is the service delivery process, to Enterprise Advantage, which is the project's management system, and to the collaboration sites. Not everything's mandatory, and it depends on the life cycle, the point in the life cycle that the opportunity is at, which will depend on which of these are activated and available. The service delivery process has a home page for each opportunity, and this will look slightly different depending on what risk zone has been calculated for the opportunity. From here, it will have links to all the stage gates and approvals that need to be filled in depending on the risk zone that you've been given. And the page will show a different set of links and forms. So this here, we're looking at an amber one, so you've got access to all the forms that make up the amber stage gate. The green one is much simpler. There's only 3 things listed here for you to do, and the red one has a few more. Also shown here is an example of what we call our bid approval form. It's one of the approvals that have to be filled in to ensure you get the right level of approval to move forward with a particular bid. The approval is calculated based on a number of factors, such as where the job's located, the type of client we're dealing with, the revenue of the particular opportunity, and also some more or less calculatable factors such as liability, transfers of staff, and various other items that might come into play. This will give us what we call a commercial approval level, and we will need approval starting from the lowest level of E up to the highest level of AA. So this will show you what level of approval you will need, and we will then control the number of people available to you to get that approval. Obviously, the higher level, the less people are available to you to do that approval. This slide, I'm just showing a sort of a graphical representation of the integrations we have throughout the life cycle of the opportunities. We've got the life cycle from win work to deliver work along the top, and then where in that cycle the different line of business applications come into play. So from CRM, from the creation of a new opportunity, and online stage gates, which is the service delivery process, when the opportunity becomes prospect, onto the Enterprise Advantage project control system and the finance system, which really come into play once a project has been won. The service delivery process really spans almost the entire life cycle. As soon as we recognize something as a prospect, the risk has to be calculated, and then the various parts of the stage gate process followed until the job's closed out at the end of delivery. I've also included a few statistics here just around the complexity of the workflow solution that I showed in the screenshot earlier. So we've got 142 forms and subforms as part of that process. Obviously you wouldn't fill in all of them, and it depends on which risk line you're going through, as I showed on the earlier slide, as to how many of those forms you'd actually fill in. We've got about 32 actions based around approvals that are needed or reviews that are needed for the various forms that are on there. We've probably got a bit more than this now, but we've got quite a few notifications to tell people when they've been assigned to an opportunity and when we're waiting for an approval or a review. We get reminder emails if people haven't undertaken a review within the allotted time or undertaken an approval, and also notifications that go out informing the managers that if an approval or review hasn't been done, they may want to consider changing who they have as the reviewer or approver. So all that is built into that workflow we looked at earlier. We've got 10 web services and consumers and about 14 WCF services that control the various integrations between the other line of business applications. And we've got about 41 database activities that we use for doing a lot of background updates as well. And we have 21 reports that are used to present all the information that's entered in a standard format. So if I come on to some of the benefits that we have achieved as part of rolling out the BPM solution for the service delivery process. One of the main benefits for us is the one-time entry of information, which is then fed around the multiple systems. And this really has reduced our processing costs around manual keying of data and freeing resources up to do other work. Our users find the whole system very user-friendly, and the screens and alerts that come out are very intuitive. We now have consistent reporting via the set of 21 standard reports that we have, and this presents the data from the service delivery process. Prior to this, the data had to be collated from a number of offline forms, Word documents and spreadsheets, and was presented in a variety of different formats. Now our group commercial team can use the 21 reports to get identical reports from all parts of our business, and that's a huge benefit for us. We also have possibly, hopefully, improved our carbon footprint slightly, because all these forms and reports are now online and are available both when you're in an Atkins office or when you're working externally, so the need to print them off is reduced. And we now have a common set of tools that are used throughout our business in all our regions, so users can move around our group and use the same set of tools without needing any retraining. And just a quick picture of our global implementations. We have over 20,000 staff worldwide, spanning UK, Europe, Middle East, India, North America, Australia, Hong Kong, and China. And the service delivery process is one global process. All these regions are using the same workflow, and the opportunities being worked on often include employees from multiple regions across those shown here in this document. So finally, I'd like to just touch on some of the lessons we've learned in implementing this process. It's evolved over a number of years and is continually being reviewed and improved. And probably the key things we've learned I've listed on here. For us, I think when we started out, we had quite a few different resources in different regions working on trying to put the multiple forms together, and we didn't think to have a consistent guide to give to these people, so we ended up with forms of all different shapes and sizes, and we quickly realized that we needed a formalized guide for the developers to work on. So we took a breath and put that together, and now all our solutions follow that design guide, and they have the same style, with things like buttons that have the same purpose, always having the same name and always being in the same position on a page. So this means people can move between the different BPM solutions, such as timesheets, expenses, and the look and feel should be fairly similar throughout all of them. Change management was also an important lesson for us. It's important to have a controlled approval process to manage change, as scope creep's inevitable, especially with complicated processes that have multiple stakeholders. We have established user forums for all our corporate solutions with a cross-section of key stakeholders from throughout our business. All proposed change goes via these user forms added to a backlog, which they are then responsible for prioritizing the change that should be included in the next release. Our forums, they meet quarterly, and we aim to have quarterly releases addressing the changes they've prioritized. We work closely as a technical team with the user forums to ensure we're adding value to each release of our solutions. Keeping the technical documentation up to date is really important as each change is made, as it's easy for it to get overlooked and get out of date. And considering the number of people and in the locations we have technical staff working, we find keeping up to date with this was really important, so people knew exactly where they were in terms of what changes had been added. Allowing enough time for testing. Complex process and integrations meant complex testing for us, and in our initial releases we underestimated how long this would take. We now make sure we allocate more than enough time for testing, and we try where possible to include end users as part of that user acceptance testing process, so that we have a much better feel that when things go to the live environment, that it's exactly what the user forum had asked for. And having a clear escalation route and governance process. With such complex processes that touch on so many of our line of business functions, it's imperative that governance lines are clearly defined and that strong lines of communications are developed with the right individuals. And possibly the most important lesson is the relationship with the BPM supplier. We have continued to develop a great working relationship with our supplier as the Sequence technology becomes an integral part of the Atkins IS systems. The key to building and maintaining this relationship is to have key account management from both sides, to work together on projects to ensure you're getting the best out of the BPM technology that you've purchased, and to have ready access to their technical experts so that they can help you when priority issues arise. And that brings me to the end of my part of the presentation. Thank you for your time, and I'll hand back now.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so if you have any questions for Paula, please do submit those. But now I'm going to start my section. Just let me start the screen. So hello everyone, I'm James Lutsford. I'm Chief Technology Officer at PNMsoft. We have our Business Process Management Suite, which is Sequence, which is what is used by Atkins and that Paula has just described. And so thank you to Paula for telling us all about how you've used Sequence. And we'll hopefully illustrate how Atkins achieved what they've managed to achieve. It's an extremely impressive system. Hopefully the demonstration will give you a bit of a flavour for how that was achieved in the 20 minutes or so that we have for the demonstration. So I'm now going to switch to my test environment. And I'm going to focus in this live demo on 4 main areas. Capturing the process. How does the business user model the process? Then how, when we execute that, can we, within a structured process, have ad hoc steps in there? It's never as easy as ABC. There's always things that go on in real life that means you might want to do something slightly different. It's where case management really comes into play. So we'll talk a little bit about how BPM and case management can work together. But it's also about streamlining the operation, making sure that it's as tuned as it can be, getting the right piece of work to the right person. And then if they can't do it, taking some remedial action. And then once we've been monitoring our process, seeing how it's performing, how can we then go ahead and change our process? Introducing change is key, as Paula mentioned. So I'm going to start by showing you our App Studio. So let me set the background a little here. Sequence is built on Microsoft technologies. It's all delivered through the browser, including the configuration environment. It's a low-code environment, so the majority of building your business process applications involves graphical design environments, configuration wizards. But the term low-code is key there. You've been listening to some of the other panelists today talking about, can we ever get to the point where we have pure self-service? There's always going to be that few little items of functionality requirements that do require code, unless you're going to compromise. So it's a real trade-off between compromising and having the functionality that you want. And Sequences allows you to do both. Configure something quickly, but then be able to add the extra piece of functionality just to really put the icing on the cake. Supporting showed you a process diagram. Now, such process diagrams, it led PNMsoft to develop what we call our dual view. The diagram that you saw is from a version of Sequence from last year. Since then, we have introduced dual view. This allows us to be able to have two views on the process. The high-level business view, and here's an example. This is the loan origination process. Have high-level steps, and then within each of those steps to then be able to have the technical view. The steps in the process that allows it to be executed, the forms, the business rules, the integration points, while still having a slightly less scary top-level process as we have here. But we can still have as many steps within each of these areas as is appropriate. We'll come back a little later and have a look at our UX Studio where we can build our forms. We can have a look at business rules integration, as we'll see how long we've got. But the key to this isn't just a pretty picture. This is actually what is executed. It means the business can work with the Sequence teams to quickly build a process, get it out there. Again, it was talked about getting processes out, something of value in 12 weeks is eminently achievable with Sequence. But then once we have the first version deployed, we can then introduce additional versions relatively quickly. That's through a hot change, which I'll show you at the end of the demonstration. So I'm very quickly just going to step through a loan origination scenario. Could be any scenario. The concepts apply to any business process. But it starts with the first person in the process. In this case, James, applying for a loan. Now here we are in our portal. We have a number of portals. This is based on Microsoft SharePoint. We have our own flow time, as we call it, website as well. Both work in exactly the same way. And we have lots of functionality here. It's all about having visibility on the processes, being able to see where we are in a particular process. And we can send messages to people. There's lots of messages that I've got here, all for the same process. That's because we've started off lots of processes for the demonstration. But we can send messages out, whether that's through a portal, through email, through my smartphone, whatever channel is appropriate for me. We can see what processes we've kicked off. But as an applicant of a loan origination, that's probably not the view that we'd present. We'd simply present the applicant with a form. Now, forms are built in our UX Studio. You can configure these to show whatever information you want. You can brand them. You can create templates so you have that consistent look and feel throughout all the forms, throughout your applications that Paula mentioned. You can pull information from systems and present it to the user. You can aggregate that information together. You may be pulling it from ERP systems, CRM systems, HR systems, and just aggregating the key pertinent information and presenting it on the form. I shall quickly be filling this in and talking at the same time. So, I can auto-populate it for me. We have everything you'd expect on a web form for a very rich but simple user experience. As part of the process, Paula mentioned about notifications, sending messages to people so they know, yes, we've received your request, thank you very much, or the process has reached this stage, or it's moved through this milestone, or that person has approved it. Or you haven't done your task yet, can you make sure this is happening? The SLA is rapidly approaching. Visibility is one of the keys to using BPM successfully. Now I've submitted that, I can come away and we'll have a look at Jane. So Jane heads up the operation. We'll see later how she can manage her operation. In the meantime, she just has an approval to manage. Now she can access its approval through the inbox in the portal, or she can access it through, we've got several in here, through email as well. So we can send information-rich, context-sensitive emails to people, and they can action the task with just one click within the email. This works very nicely on smartphones as well. It's about reducing the human latency, allowing people to do their task very quickly. Or she can open it in the portal. Doesn't really matter where she is, the actual process is the same. We're not having to build mobile apps, laptop-based apps, tablet-based apps. It's all one and the same. We present Jane with all the details. The reason she is having to do this approval is we've done a credit check on this particular applicant. The credit score and the internal risk rating, the KYC, if you're familiar with financial services, know your client risk rating that all regulated financial organisations have to carry out, aren't great. Not bad enough to reject, but not good enough to automatically approve. So she's going to ask for some further information. She could approve it, she could reject it, but she wants my business, so she has submitted, please can I have more information. That is a sub-process, that's why it said completed. Part of our case management capabilities where you can build some functionality once and reuse it many times. All of the artifacts, whether it's processes, forms, process snippets, can all be reused. Now Tom here, he can monitor all the list of cases that are running in a tabular form that we have here, and he can see some action is required. And so he can open this case up and he can see what's going on. Or he can view the case homepage, a summary of this case. And this allows him to be able to see what case actions have been taken already. And what do we now want to do? Let's now use our experience, our knowledge, and decide what's going to happen. We've done some structured steps to the process already. We're now reaching to case management, where we want to manage the case in the way that we see most applicable. So that has now started another process. It actually returns very quickly so that we can see it happening in the demonstration. They can kick off a number of these processes just to make sure this case is handled. And any process could be kicked off multiple times. What we're trying to get to here is the point where he's happy to resubmit it for approval and Jane is happy to give her approval. And it's now returned to Jane for her to then see, again in exactly the same way she did before, on the channel that she wants. She can see the updated details, including the additional case manager's comments, and she's now happy to approve. At this point, it's now moving from underwriting to processing, moving on in the process. So that's part of Jane's role, but her main part is managing the operation. How can we tune our operation to be as effective as possible? Many processes may just go to one person for approval, but more often than not, we're seeing Sequence being used in large organizations, globally distributed, with teams, delivery centers, whatever they may be, distributed around the world, doing different work, possibly doing the same work. And our hot operations allows us to be able to see, okay, Jane looks after 4 teams. How are they loaded up? We can see they're all pretty full. How are we closing cases? How are we performing to SLAs, on time versus overdue? Lots of information here to help her to understand how her teams are doing. But more importantly, she can actually see what work, what cases her teams are doing. She's got 4 teams, and here she can see how loaded they all are. She can also see these cases. This was a number of cases, as they came in, were automatically, through allocation rules, allocated out to appropriate teams. But there may be some situations, such as these particular cases, that we don't know what to do with them. We want a human, we want Jane to decide. She can pick these cases up and she can decide where they're going to go, just through simple drag and drop, or even multiple cases at the same time. Or she may decide that she wants to reallocate a case from one team to another, starting to even out her workload across the teams and seeing how much it's costing for her to deliver each case, each transaction. And now that she's allocated some of these cases out, we can see how that affects her team leader. One of her team leaders, Peter, he looks after the East team. He has a similar dashboard, helps him to understand how his particular team is performing. And he has a similar board, but this board allows him to be able to see what his team's doing. These could be allocated automatically, as we saw, or we may want the team leader to decide, well, who's going to do what work. So again, in the same way, the team leader can allocate the work out. We can see how we're doing on performing, getting all of our tasks done on time. Everything is done in this view. This isn't just a one-time exercise. Peter and Jane, they can both come in here, they can monitor the situation and tune it accordingly, move work around, move resources between teams, move cases between teams, whatever is the best approach to get the most tuned, most productive operation. And finally, that then boils down to the man on the ground, in this case Mark, who is then going to actually do the work. So he has this dynamic list, and this is continually changing as his team leaders and his operations managers are changing their priorities and moving cases between teams. And finally, we can provide visibility on not the operation, but the application, the process, with KPI gauges, SLA gauges, all the sorts of good real-time information so that everyone can understand exactly how the operation is performing. There's a very quick look at the hot operations. So finally, we're just going to wrap up with how do we actually then make changes. We can create new versions of processes. We can release those versions of processes through hot change. When we make a change, we can then decide, well, is that going to be a version 2, in which case version 1 will carry on through to completion, any cases on version 1, and any new cases will start on version 2. Or we may decide we've had a regulatory change, or we need to fix something, or change the way something works, change a threshold. We can apply those changes to the version 1 of the process, which means any cases running under that version can then adopt those changes. Very powerful capability. And then finally, just to wrap up, I've about 3 minutes left before we can switch over to some questions, so please do get any questions into the question widget. Let's have a quick look at how we can build that application. We can build our forms. You saw this form in action. Very easy to be able to create this form from templates so that you have a standard look and feel. You can apply branding. We can also create views as well. So views, these are reusable components that can then appear on other forms. So I create this once, this is a summary of the case, and it can then be reused in every other form. Atkins have got 100+ forms. There's common elements on there. They don't want to have to create those each time. They don't want to have to maintain them each time, so they can create those common elements, views, once, and reuse them multiple times. And then if they make a change, they make it once, and it ripples down to all the other forms. This could be a view onto another system, onto an ERP system, onto a CRM system, showing me a customer record or an invoice. That integration is very easy to be able to achieve and to then surface out to the users. We can have business rules in here, either single business rules that's deciding do we go left or right, or we can have multiple business rules in here that's to allow us to decide which route do we take. And these, we can have multiple conditions in here that decide from this point which of these sub-processes, for instance, are we going to launch. We can add business rules very quickly and easily. And those business rules can be based on any piece of data in the process. We have a full data model behind that has been created as we build the application. Any piece of information that's being captured from the users or from other systems or from calculations is then available to me for me to be able to use in my business rules or on forms or in calling other systems. So it could be, for instance, the loan amount. If the loan amount is over 5,000 euros, we're going to go this way, otherwise we go that way. And then finally, just before I wrap up, let's look at some of the additional capabilities. You've seen some forms, some tasks, and messages in action. We have full flow control capabilities, ability to be able to manipulate our data according to what's going on and business rules. We can create additional custom activities to other systems, but we've got out-of-the-box capabilities to connect to Dynamics CRM, to SAP. If you want to create your own, you can do that. Or if you want to use industry standard integration, we have everything that you need there. We can launch sub-processes. A process can be launched standalone or as a child process within a parent process. Again, build once, use many times. And we can even model process in BPMN. You can decide at the business view. Many of our customers use a standard simple notation, or if you want to use BPMN, we've got full support for that. And finally, SharePoint. We have full SharePoint integration. We can manipulate SharePoint content, but you can also use SharePoint as your portal, as you saw me doing. Lots more that I can say, but that's enough of me speaking. I think we'll now hand over and look at some of the questions. So Amanda, over
Brilliant.
to you.
Thank you. Thanks, James. Lots of questions coming in. As James says, you can ask your questions via the Q&A chat box. First question, what's the total cost of ownership of such a large project, and how feasible is it to make changes to such a large process?
Okay, Paula, that's probably one. Do you want to take that, or would you like me to take that?
I can certainly answer the second part of it. The first part of it in terms of cost I might leave to you, but yes, certainly, and I probably should have put that on our lessons learned. If we were starting again, we would have a lot more sub-workflows than we do in that rather large process that I showed you, but and that's how we've implemented a lot of other solutions. It is challenging to make changes on it, but we have a well-documented process, and we do 2 levels of testing, so we're always well tested in changes that we make. But given our time again, I think we would have implemented a lot more sub-workflows.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then just in terms of the cost, Sequence, because we've built it on Microsoft technologies, the total cost of ownership is relatively low in terms of the benefit, the ROI that you will get back. We have lots of case studies on our website that can show ROI. Can't really give any ballpark figures, but we are extremely competitive in price compared to all of our competitors for like products. Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you. Was it a strategic decision to stay in Microsoft technology, or is it a requirement?
Certainly for Atkins, it was a strategic decision. A lot of our applications are on the Microsoft platforms.
Mm-hmm. And PNMsoft, I joined PNMsoft in 2007, and Microsoft wasn't very popular amongst the large enterprises. But when we had the downturn, companies started to look at cheaper solutions for their infrastructure, and the Microsoft stack has become much more popular. So we're now finding up to large government organizations, multinationals, are utilizing Microsoft.
The next question, how do team members feel when when a case they are working on and perhaps a connection is just moved to someone else? How is this human factor addressed? Maybe to Paula first.
Certainly from our perspective, if we move an action from one person to another, we always send a notification to the original person to tell them that their input's no longer needed. So there is an interaction from the process. We don't just move in our processes. We don't just take something away from someone we've asked to action and not let them know that it's been the action's been transferred to someone else.
And I'm assuming that question is in relation to showing in our hot operations how we can move work between users. What actually happens, as soon as Mark had opened that case, it had fetched it, which meant it was locked to him, and his team leader or his operations director couldn't then move it. We stopped them doing that for that very reason. So once you have fetched a task, it's yours, and you can work through to completion. You can send it back again, that then allows it to be reallocated to someone else, but once you've got it, it's yours. No, because for that very reason, people don't like to suddenly find something's been taken away from them that they're working on.
This one, I think, to Paula, what are the volumes of data in your service delivery process?
We have probably in the order of about, I think, 32,000 active opportunities that are in various states in the life cycle, some that are actually still in the bid stages, some that are working through the delivery stages, and some of these will be quite long, so they can be actually in process for 2-3 years if it's one of our large construction projects. So we have quite a few active processes on the go currently.
And Sequence has been designed for long-running processes. So processes can run for years, and they can even exist over Sequence upgrades as well. So we can upgrade the platform, and the process can carry on running, obviously with a little bit of downtime in the middle.
Yes, we've been through that last year. We had a major upgrade, and we had no issues with processes that we'd opened in one version. In fact, we did a 2-version upgrade in one go, so it was probably more complicated than we should have let it become, but it was very successful.
And what other corporate solutions do you use the BPM tool for?
I think I touched slightly on that in the presentation. After we rolled out to the service delivery, we're now also live with timesheets process, expenses, absence management, invoicing, and our monthly forecasting for our projects into the finance system. And some of these have got multiple levels of approval and verification. And the timesheets, for example, is currently used by almost 17,000 people on a weekly basis.
Great. And this one to James first. How do you handle making the process transparent for the user? For example, if the flow of case is dependent on the answer that the user gives, how do they keep informed on the variable dependent flow?
Okay, well, there's two ways that you can do that. And again, depending on the type of task. So really, it's not a technology piece. It's about the implementation. How do I, on the form or in the message that the user is receiving, how do I make sure it's clear what they're being asked to do, why they're being asked to do it, and what any possible consequences are. So if I approve this, it's going to go that way. If I select this, it's going to go this way. Some of our customers also show the approval route as well, and we can use predictive analytics to say, okay, we believe this is now going to go to that person, then on to this person. So it's about making the information available to them at the point when they're actually actioning the task.
Great. Another question here for Paula. How many users are there?
We have different numbers of users depending on which process it is. Not everyone will use our service delivery process because it's the bid teams and then the project delivery teams. But out of our 20,000 worldwide staff, we've probably got about 10,000 users of the service delivery. Probably 17,000 people use the timesheets and the expenses, and a lot less people will use our invoicing and PSRs. They've probably got about 4,000 users each.
Mm-hmm. And what's interesting with the timesheet application is those 17,000 people are using it at pretty much the same time, sort of on a Friday. So toward the beginning of the week, usage is quite low, and suddenly there's this huge spike. And because Sequence is tuned very carefully, they're not having to throw hundreds and hundreds of servers in order to achieve that level of concurrent usage. So it works very well.
Yeah, no, that's true. We have a deadline of midday UK time on a Friday for all timesheets to be in. So at 10 to 12 on a Friday, you've probably got a few, quite a few thousand people hammering their timesheets in, and it works very well.
Brilliant, thanks guys. Okay, so that wraps up the questions. Just the closing remarks, if I could go to Paula first.
Now I'd just like to thank everyone for their time and listening in.
Mm-hmm.
And over to James.
Yes, and I'd just like to thank Paula for taking her time today. Atkins have been a customer of PNMsoft for quite a few years now. They're a great customer. We work very closely together. As Paula mentioned, it's very important to view it as a partnership. We're in this together. We want Atkins to succeed. We want Atkins to use Sequence in more and more processes. So we work very closely to build that relationship. And hopefully, both companies are benefiting from the relationship. But otherwise, thank you everyone for listening in today. Hope you found it useful. And back to you, Amanda.
Brilliant. Thanks everyone, and thank you to everyone for listening. So that brings a wrap up to the end of day 2 of the BPM Open House. Just to let you know that tomorrow we'll be starting at 11 o'clock Eastern. So 11 o'clock Eastern starting tomorrow. We're already halfway through. I'd like to thank all of our presenters today and the audience for listening. And also just to remind you of our incentive, each day we will give out a pass to people who attend the live sessions to either BPE San Francisco, which is happening next week, or to OPEX Week Orlando. So make sure you stay tuned, and I hope you can all join me again tomorrow. Thank you and goodbye.